Welcome to Live Free. I'm Angela K. Austin. Together, we'll discuss books, we'll explore the world, and we'll do it with some of my closest friends. And hopefully, we'll make new ones along the way.
Hey everybody, this is Angela K. Austin, and today I am here with Geraldine Grant, a travel consultant. Say hi to everybody, Jerry.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. Hi, Angela.
Hey, lady. All right, so now for all of you people out there in the self-publishing world, we all know Jerry, right? We know Jerry because she is a crazy avid reader who loves books so much that she was like, I'm just going to start throwing events. And she has had me personally all up in New Orleans. You know, she has planned trips and taken me all over. She's taken me to Mexico. She's planned trips that have taken me to France and London, Ireland. So this lady has been doing a lot for me personally. And so I wanted to introduce all of you guys to Jerry for a couple of reasons. Because she is a travel consultant, and because in this time of COVID, I've had so many people who have reached out and who've asked me about traveling. How did I plan some of my trips, and how did I do some of these things that I've done? So I thought, why not introduce you to the lady who has helped me do some of these things, right? So before we get into everything, I want to give Jerry a moment to tell you guys exactly who she is, a little bit about her background, and just, from after she tells you and shares a little bit of that with you, then we're going to start talking a little bit more about what it's like to travel, or even if you should be traveling right now at this time in our crazy history in the world. So, Jerry, tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and just why you do it. How did you get into this whole thing to become a travel consultant?
Well, I got into it in a kind of a roundabout way into the actual profession of being a travel consultant. I'm a retired attorney. I actually practiced law for almost 30 years. Yes, I'm very young looking. And every year while I was a trial lawyer, and I used to plan vacations once a year, somewhere where I could go and stay, someplace I'd never been. And so friends knew about it. They used to ask me to plan their vacations for them. I wasn't getting paid, but I just enjoyed doing it. So once I got around to deciding that I wanted to retire from law and find something I could do that I really enjoyed and it wasn't giving me gray hair, I decided to become a meeting planner, which is how I got started doing events and how I ended up doing IR romance events. But then I moved my land events to doing cruises. And once I started doing cruises, I met other travel professionals, and one told me one day, Geraldine, you can do this. Stop leaving money on the table. You're smart enough where you can become a travel professional yourself, and you can do this, and you can earn commission, and you can, lead groups, whatever you want to do. And so I actually spent 2 years training with another local agency, travel agency here where I live in Montgomery, Alabama. And I got my own certifications for my company because I decided I wasn't going to work for somebody else anymore. And I've been my company, which is M&E Unlimited Travel. I've been in business almost 11 years now. I mean, the time has really flown. And when I was deciding on my niche, I got certified in luxury travel, in meetings and events at sea, in small group travel, and leading groups around the world. I kind of got to feeling that I really got excited when I planned trips for Black women like myself, because so many of us are leaving jobs, we're retiring, we've got a special event, birthdays coming up, whatever, and we want to do something we've never done, get out of our comfort zone. So they were coming to me, some of my former colleagues and new friends, and they're saying, I've got a 50th birthday coming up, or I've never been to Europe or something special, and I don't know where to start. So can you plan it for me? And that's kind of how I got started. And it was so exciting to plan a trip like for you and Laverne, going to Ireland or something. That really makes me high. That and a good IR romance novel make me high. And I just love it. And so I do small groups. I do girlfriends trips. I do family vacations. I try and keep it small because I am, as a perfectionist, as some people have accused me of being, I want to be hands-on, and I want to manage you from the beginning of your trip all the way through to the end.
And let me just tell you guys, when Jerry talks about she's a perfectionist, when she planned our trips that we've done, I mean, honestly, all the way down to like Metro cards in Paris and, and whatever, she will plan every detail for you so that, if it's something that you've never done before, you don't have to be afraid, if you're in the hands of someone like Jerry, because she can take you through each step. So let's break down some of that stuff that you said, Jerry, because I didn't even know that there were certifications that people could get. I just figured, people work for a travel agent and, I didn't realize that there were even certifications. So that's really cool to actually find out that there is something like this out there. When it comes to you, because, something that you said right there with, when it comes to planning trips for Black women. Now, when I talk to people about traveling, like when I decided to go to Brazil and was like trying to do all these things and, go to Greece and all of this, one of the first questions I always ask people, and one of the first things I always do, is a search, because I want to know if I'm going to feel welcomed when I go to a country, right?
Yes.
I want to feel safe, I want to feel like, because I'm traveling by myself, usually, tagging on with the group, or in the case of like me and Laverne Thompson, for all those guys, shout out Laverne, if we're going out there together. But either way, it's still two women, So right. One of the questions that I really wanted to make sure I asked of you is not just in the time of COVID, because I do want to talk about that too, but safety as women traveling, or as people traveling, young people, older people. I mean, how do we know if it's safe for us to go to a particular country? Can you give us any advice? Like when we're talking to our travel consultant, if I pick up the phone and call you and I'm like, hey, Jerry, I want to go to Bali. Like how, what should that conversation really, really look like, in your opinion?
Well, I'll tell you what I do, because I'm maybe unusual in that I love traveling solo. I always have. And I think that's because when you're traveling with someone else, a lot of times you end up having to compromise on a lot of things. What you want to do, where you want to eat, how much time you spend by yourself. So I'm very comfortable traveling solo. However, because I am a safety nut, I do a lot of research on every destination. And one thing about being a professional, travel professional, we have access to information on destinations around the world at our fingertips. I'm signed with almost 70 different travel companies, including airlines, hotels, resorts, tour companies. And these suppliers are constantly sending us information and updating us on what it's like on the ground. Most of the businesses I deal with, they have to have people on the ground in that destination, and not just doing it from California, trying to manage it, because I'm very particular about my people. I want to make sure my people are safe, just as I would for myself. So one of the first things I do, I have several clients that are women. They travel solo all the time. I have a teacher. She takes a vacation twice a year and she goes by herself. And so she kind of gives me an idea what destination she's interested in. I find out what kind of activities you're interested in. And I ask, what's your comfort level traveling solo? Meaning, are you comfortable eating by yourself? Are you comfortable doing public transportation? That kind of thing. So if I find out that you're not, then I plan your trip where you don't have to be out on your own. You are picked up at the airport with your private driver. You are escorted to your hotel. All your activities are going to be planned, if that's what you want, to have your own private tour guide. And particularly depending on the destinations that are not, quote, safe for women travelers, female travelers, I make sure that you're always and have a safety zone, that you're never left hanging. You're never wondering how you're going to get from place A to place B. And as we're planning your trip, as it gets up to departure, I also send you all kinds of information on your destination. We talk about money, we talk about climate, we talk about places, areas that are safe, areas that are not. We talk about general safety tips because I was a violent crimes prosecutor. So I have seen what happens, what can happen to a woman who's out by herself and happens to, to run into a bad situation. So that is, safety is always the number one thing I think about. But I've been blessed. I've been to pretty much just about every continent, from Africa to Australia to, of course, Europe, which is my specialty, Italy in particular. And I've taken the opportunity to travel with other travel professionals to a destination I'm not familiar with. And the reason I do that at my own expense is so I can go and I can say, okay, we're not going to do this way, or we're not going to take the train in Naples, or we're not going to do that, and see what works and what doesn't work. Because like I said, I travel by myself. The other agents have roommates and friends, but Jerry's on her own. So the first thing I ask a client when they come to me and they say, I want to travel and I don't want to wait on a friend, don't be afraid to step out there. But I want to know, tell me what's on your bucket list and why do you want to go there? What is it you want to experience? And once I get a feel for what you want to do, I may suggest you try another destination, because it's not the one you think you like is not going to give you what you want. And so safety, I mean, safety is a huge thing. And a lot of people have ideas about what a destination is like, but it's not what they think it is. And they're not going to get the experience that they think they're going to get. And so I think that's one benefit of being a real travel professional who travels, because there are a lot of people that sell travel, but they never leave home.
I've had people who have not traveled, and honestly, I don't think I realized how important that nuance was, because, when I have worked with people who have not traveled and people who have, you can tell the difference. Because let me even tell you guys, when we went to Paris, the hotel we were in was adorable. Spot on, right in the middle of every single thing. It was great. But the elevator.
Right.
I work it.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? Don't get your girl wrong. I work out. I tried.
Right.
Good Lord. We were walking up to like the 5th or 6th floor. We were like, Jerry.
Yeah. And I don't care what time of day or night. That's one thing about Facebook and messaging. You can get me any time of day or night. I remember that. And I remember contacting, and I had a supplier that I work with, and I said, the elevator's not working, refund.
Yeah.
And we were able to get that. But yeah, some things you can't prepare for. So you need to be flexible. And reasonable. But yeah, I couldn't do five floors. No. No.
But
that would have never happened.
But because you have traveled, because when I talk to people about, these boutique hotels or these like things, they're small, they're older, people are like, oh, why didn't your agent, like your consultant put you in another hotel? It's like, we didn't really want to be, because we were in a perfect location. It was a beautiful hotel. It's just that I wasn't counting on having a cardio workout every time I left my room, so I just wanted to be compensated for that.
Right.
And I personally think that, because you are familiar with these places, you understood, you put us in a great location, and it was just about getting that compensation, for that little bit of a discomfort. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I tell you, one of the things particularly when I'm escorting a group, or I have people say who've never been to Europe, I do like a whole lecture on European hotels are not like they are in the United States. Mm-hmm. If you've never left the United States, or you've only been to Caribbean, then you have an idea about what a 4-star, 3-star hotel is like. And they do not, you can't compare. Mm-hmm. And everything's going to be smaller square footage. It's going to be, you're going to see this weird thing in there called a bidet you've never seen before. Bring your own washcloth, because they don't do face cloths.
Yeah. Don't forget your adapters, everything. Don't forget these things.
Don't forget these things. And so I found if I educate my clients before they get there, they're not shocked, they're not disappointed, and they're ready to go. And what I say is, depending on what you want to get out of the trip, it's location, location, location. For you, particularly if you don't want to spend money on taxis and taking transportation, be somewhere where you can go out and walk to dinner. You can get to shopping. You can get to places because the location is right in the center of everything. And I found that if you have to balance out the two, location can, and depending on how long you're staying, can overlook some of the other inconveniences. But no, your elevator should have been working.
It should have been working.
Not to mention that was, believe me, they got an earful. So that's
but it was an absolute, and they were doing renovations on the hotel, but it was an absolutely perfect location. I mean, when it came to like going out to eat and just like daily walkabouts, shopping.
You want to be able to walk in safety in a safe neighborhood, a safe area where you don't have to worry too much about, things happen to you. So that's the number one thing on my list when I'm looking at hotels. And I work with suppliers they've been there, they've stayed there, they know the properties. And a lot of these properties, like I said, they don't necessarily tell you that they're doing renovations or what's going on. But like I said, then the key is you try and mitigate the discomfort as much as possible, and get that refund,
Exactly. And that's exactly what you did. And that's in people, that's a recommendation. If you are traveling, especially if you're someone who, may have a little anxiety about traveling and, you haven't traveled to many places, you do want to have a consultant, somebody that you can reach out to. And there's a huge time difference, know? And so you want to have somebody that you can reach out to who's going to try to problem solve for you.
When my clients are traveling, I don't care what time of the day or night it is, call me. Don't be mad. Don't be upset and frustrated. Give me an opportunity to try and fix it or make it right. If your plane is late and you miss your connection, call me and I'll tell you to find the red coats at Delta Airlines and what to tell them and how they can get you on the next flight. And I'll call the hotel and make sure your room isn't given away and that your transfer driver knows your new pickup time. You don't have to worry about that. You just worry about making your connection and getting to the destination and let me take care of the logistics.
It is what they should do for you, but it does depend, I think, on the agency or the consultant that you're working with, because I think, excuse me, I choked up a little bit. I think so many people are, about numbers and dollars and working fast, and so, which is actually one reason why I personally do like to work with smaller companies, because then you build a rapport, right? And then you feel like this person is in your corner, and so, and speaking of that, right now in the time of COVID, like me, myself, I told you, I've been sitting my butt in this chair for like 3 months. I'm like, I'm holding tight. I hit the grocery store with my mask and gloves. I'm holding tight. But during this time of COVID, when we're talking about safety, what's your opinion? What should people be doing right now? Should they be looking to travel or should they be planning travel for next year? What's your personal, opinion? What do you think?
Well, my opinion has evolved over the last few months, because in the beginning, I think January, March, summer and fall looked like it was a ways away. And there were people who were still desperate to travel and they were actually still booking trips for summer and for fall. And I had trips booked for this whole year, all the way through till October, that end up all being canceled. And I still see people trying to find a way to vacation or travel, somewhere where they can get a break. But I am of the opinion at this point in time is that my company, we're not booking any more travel for 2020. So every day, each destination evaluates the COVID risk. And unfortunately, the United States is on everybody's S list, meaning do not travel because of the rate of infection in this country. And I have friends who live in Italy and in France and in Australia, and they're just appalled at the attitude of most Americans and not taking it seriously. My friends in Italy, they were on lockdown for 10 weeks to get the rate of infection down. And now they're all on the Amalfi Coast drinking and eat pizza and, having a ball. They're still wearing masks, but they're going to the beach and they're going to museums. And so for US citizens, we're not going to be going anywhere for a while. I don't care what it is. By air, I think air is getting a little bit safer as far as flights, but I don't intend to fly, at least until maybe at the end of the year, depending on how things progress. But for right now, I'm not getting on a plane. And I see a lot of my fellow agents, they book people for Mexico. Americans can go to Mexico. And I think Mexico, meaning the Caribbean side, not the other side, although they're doing all right too. Cancun, Riviera Maya, their safety protocols have been pretty successful. And it's just a 3-hour flight from the East Coast. So I see a lot of tourists going there and having real success there. Jamaica and some of the other Caribbean islands started out doing pretty well, where you fly over, you'd have a COVID test right after you landed, and then you'd have to be quarantined in your hotel room until the results come back. And it was doing pretty well, but now their infection rate is rising because guess what? There are American tourists that are going over there and ignoring the rules. They're not wearing masks. You're supposed to stay on your resort. You're not supposed to travel around Ocho Rios or Montego Bay, but they're doing it anyway. So the rules just this week, the Prime Minister of Jamaica was on saying, okay, we're going to start locking this down again. So everything is a rolling situation. So I have just made a decision, and I can because my company is small. I'm just not booking anybody until spring of 2021 at the earliest.
I think it's kind of scary to me, but it's sad too, because I don't get it. I don't understand why we are not taking precautions so that we can not only make sure that we ourselves are healthy, but so that we can get our numbers down and we can continue to do the things that we want to do and do them safely. It does not bother me to wear a mask. I don't, I will put that bad boy on. I was like, ooh, I can save all my lipsticks because I ain't got to put no lipstick on every time I walk out the house.
I have designer masks. I have some with leopard print, and I have one for romance, that says, stay safe, read a romance. No,
yeah, exactly.
I think it's a fashion accessory, a fashion statement. And you kind of work it, and so, but there are other people who just will not take it seriously. And what's even worse is they'll go to another country, and decide, well, I'm not going to follow their rules either.
Yeah.
Meaning if they say you got to wear a mask in all public areas, others are going, well, no, I'm not. And some of these islands have sent folk home. They have put them right back on a plane and sent them right back.
And I'm not mad at that because they have to protect their people. Like the other day, so as when you're out here, you're trying to write and you're trying to, come up with new ideas. Sometimes you get a little bit of writer's block. So the other day I was like, I'm going to go to the zoo. And, you go up to the zoo and it has a big thing that says masks recommended,
Right.
so they're like in the outdoor spaces, recommended, but in the indoor spaces, they want you to wear a mask. Me, I'm like, I'm just going to wear a mask the whole time. It doesn't bother me, but it was amazing to go through there and see how many people just did not have on masks. It's like, I don't understand the I don't know. I just don't understand why we're kind of like thumbing our nose up. And I get people, people don't believe in, the seriousness of it because they don't necessarily know someone. Because if you say 5 million people have been infected, but 165 people have died, they don't know that one of those 165,000 people. And so because of that, they don't take it seriously, and, but the thing is that I feel like that's a bit of a blessing that you don't know one of those 165,000 people,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so why make the numbers higher and why make the odds worse? I mean, I've had friends who've been hospitalized because of COVID, and had a friend who was in ICU because of COVID. So for me, I'm like, I will put that mask on because I think about the fact that, somebody who didn't know they were sick, or maybe they did, infected my friend.
And that's
And
that.
I don't want to be the person who infects somebody else,
And I also think, I think that this is also what has always bugged me about Americans who travel.
Mm-hmm.
Going to other countries expecting everybody and everything to be what you're used to back in the States. And when things are not up to their expectations, they just show out. And I think because they don't have respect for the destination and the people there and the customs and the rules. And it's showing up the same thing with wearing a mask. I mean, if you fly to Jamaica and they say, come and you're at the, you go through and you take a test and you're negative, but they say, but you need to stay at your resort. And you just decide, well, I don't want to stay at the resort. I'm gonna get me a hire taxi and I'm gonna go wherever. You're not having respect for the people that live there. And you're also making it hard for other people who want to come behind you because the government's going to decide, okay, if you're not going to obey our rules, then you can't come. And we'll take the Canadians and the Europeans and everybody else in the US. And because that's normally 9 times out of 10, that's who it is. I have not read one article that said tourists from other countries are the ones not following the rules. It's always somebody from the United States who doesn't want to be inconvenienced in any way, shape, or form.
And this is a big point, people. So for all of my people out there who want to travel, there are laws and rules in other countries that are not American.
That's right.
Their laws are for their country and for their people. And if you want to go to their country, you need to obey their laws. And I say that, Jerry, because I want to talk a little bit about you planning trips, right? I have a lot of people out there who are like, oh, I want to go to this place and that place because it looks so beautiful. And when my friends tell me that, I'm like, I don't know if that's the right country for you to visit.
Exactly.
Because I don't know if that's going to fit into your sensibilities, because
that is so key.
Because I know who they are and what they like to do and how. I'm like, that's not a country you should visit because that's not going to fit with you. So let's talk a little bit, because I love how you said if somebody tells you what's on their bucket list or whatever, and they tell you they want to go see this, and you may make a different suggestion. So let's talk a little bit about you planning trips and, just kind of what that looks like, and just some ideas that you might give to people who are thinking about, like when somebody tells me they want to go to like the UAE or Dubai or something, I'm like, oh, there's some laws over there that, I need y'all to be aware of. Let's do a deep dive before we plan that trip. So talk to us a little bit about how you plan trips, like what that process looks like for you, with a customer who might be brand new to you.
Okay. Well, I get most of my business is through referrals, meaning I have clients who give my information to someone they know. I very rarely have to, I don't advertise. I mean, most of my business is word of mouth. So when I get a new person that comes to me, most of the time it's never, well, I just want to go somewhere. It's usually I've got something special coming up, or I've always wanted to go to a particular destination. And this is, so I ask the basic questions. The first one is, well, how did you pick that destination and why do you want to go there? And through talking to them, they say, well, like I had 2 ladies who were from Birmingham. They were physical therapists and they're in their 20s, and they'd always wanted to go to Australia. And they didn't want to do a cruise or anything. They wanted to fly over, and they had certain special sites they wanted to see. They wanted to go to Sydney and see the Opera House. They wanted to see the Great Barrier Reef and some other things. So what I spent time telling them, look, first of all, how physically fit are you? You understand that the plane ride from Birmingham, from the West Coast, is going to be 14 hours. And then you add Birmingham, another 4 on top of that. So you see how long how long you're going to be flying. And then we talk about, okay, let's look at what the things you want to see. Now, you understand that if you come into Sydney and you want to go to the Great Barrier Reef, then that's another plane ride up to Cairns, because they're not even anywhere close to each other. So we talk about logistics on the things they want to see and how many days they have, because that's really important. Because if you're going to go halfway around the world, you can't say, well, I want to go, 6 days. That's not going to cut it and see all these things. It's impossible. So I tell them, okay, you're going to have to, if you really don't want to cut out anything, then we're going to have to increase the time, because it's going to take you 2 days to get there. Meaning, because of the international date line, you're going to get there 2 days after you depart. So we have to get the number of days in, and then we look at, okay, how much time you want to spend in this particular city. I tell most newbies, let's not do more than 2 cities in any one country at a time, because I don't believe in rushing around and spending all your time being transported from one place to the other. That's not a way to enjoy and get to know a destination. So we talk about how much time you have. We also talk about budget. A lot of people, it doesn't serve you to come to me and want to be cagey about how much money you have. I don't care how much money you have. I want to know so I can get you the very best of what you can afford to have, being accommodations, transportation, whatever, and we'll make it fit. And if I think your budget isn't going to cover certain things, I'll say, well, why don't we cut it back to say, just do 4 days and let's do Sydney and Melbourne and stay in a 4-star hotel, and you'll get to tour and you'll get to go to wine country and you'll get to do all these things in your budget, and you won't have to worry about staying 5 minutes in one place and going somewhere else. And so they said, well, we really want to snorkel at the Great Barrier Reef. I said, okay, we're cutting out Melbourne. We're going to fly into Sydney. Then we're going to fly you up to Cairns, and there's a nice hotel here. And then I booked the tour that took them out to the dive to do the snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef. And they did that 10 days. They came back and they said, girl, I'm so glad you warned us, because of 16-hour time difference, the long flight. And they said, we were slap wore out, but we enjoyed every minute of it. So that's where I kind of, use my knowledge of the destination, how to get there, how long it takes, to say, and your level of comfort. That's why I always ask that too, because I don't judge. It's if your level of comfort is the Four Seasons, well, that's going to be different. But then if it's like a Marriott or Hilton, or you got, certain things, you got to have a certain level of comfort. Well, let's talk about that too. But if it's more important to just be in a good spot where you can walk around and get out and you're not picky, then we'll go with that. So my job is to try and get you as close to what you want as possible and use my knowledge of the destination and activities. I had a couple who they had hotel points that they could use for hotels for Rome and Venice and Florence. They just didn't want to do tours. I was able to work with them to get them what they wanted. And that's why I do small groups, and I create my own private tours, and I have people book into that. But when I'm working what you call a FIT, foreign independent travel, meaning I'm working with you on your trip and your trip only, then we work and we go back and forth to get it exactly the way you want it, whether you're going to South Africa, Morocco. I have a lot of my clients, they're in Europe and they're going from one country to another, and they want to take the train. So it's all about working it until it's the experience destination you want, the experience you want within your price range. And then the dates, of course, dates and time of year. People want to go to Dubai in the summer. Like, no, it's 120 degrees. So that's where my knowledge, I think, probably is the most beneficial to the client. And so that's what we do. We start the minute they contact me, by phone, by email, whichever way is easier, because I know people work. And we talk about it, and we finally, I may change an itinerary 4 or 5 times until I get it to what you want to do. And then most of the time you pay a deposit. You know, we put the package together, you just pay a deposit. And I also advise people, if it's a big trip, you need to contact me like 8-9 months ahead of time, because not everybody can just plop down their card and pay for the whole thing at once. You know, you want to be able to pay a deposit, which normally is anywhere from, depending on what type of trip it is, could be anywhere from $150 to $500 per person or whatever, and then make payments. You know, that's another thing I do that you know, you can't always get. I take payments. You know, you tell me how much you want to pay on your trip and when you want to pay it, and I take care of it just as long as it's paid out by final payment. So it really works well with a lot of people who think they can't travel because they don't have the money.
And I'm going to co-sign all of that, guys, because for those of you who don't know me, I am extremely frugal. But
yeah, you and Laverne, that used to tickle me, because Laverne is like, yeah, book of Atlanta's going to wait just a minute.
My friend Laverne Thompson, who's also a writer, she and I have completely dispositions when it comes to the dollar, okay? Laverne's like, oh yeah, let's do this, Angela, and you know, blah, blah, we're gonna fly first class. I'm like, what? How about, wait.
Well, how about we do economy comfort? How about we do that, meet in the middle?
And Jerry, poor Jerry, she's got to navigate that. I'm like, Laverne, I'm not spending that money. What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? I'm like, no, I want to take this trip. I want to do this, and I want to go on this excursion. And if I'm spending all my money on the plane flight, I can't do blah, 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 blah. It is hilarious. And and it is so funny because every time Laverne and I take a trip, we have the same argument. It's like, girl, I'm not spending all that money on that. But it's so funny, guys, because, you know, when you are working with somebody who is familiar, you know, with the travel that they are planning for you, then they know how to navigate those discussions, you know, because I've been to Europe, you know, quite a few times, you know, but when I'm trying to explore and see something that I haven't seen before, you know, I want to be able to enjoy that. And like Gerald hinted to, I don't want to be concerned about my budget when I'm there. I want to pay for it. Like, one of the things that I like about working with Jerry is that when we do, I know I can pay for those excursions and stuff ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So when we pay for those, when I get there, it's like,
it's done.
It's like, let's have some fun. What we doing? You know, so if I want to add some extra excursions or do whatever, I know that I can, because I know that everything else has already been settled and done.
And we always build in free time, because it shouldn't be so regimented that you can't decide. Because I've had that experience myself where everybody else is going out on something and I'm staying in my room and looking at Italian television or wherever, and because I just don't want to go anywhere else. Yeah. And you can have, or maybe I just want to stroll around and go have a gelato somewhere, where we always build in free time in the itineraries to where you can add, or, you know, add another excursion or another tour, go shopping, but make sure that you're not rushed. Because I tell people, my motto is, I do not do struggle travel. I do not do struggle travel. So if you're only about the money, and I've had people who want to, you know, take a bus 5 hours somewhere and then have a 21-hour layover to get to Paris, don't call me. Because, you know, I don't believe in it. I don't think that travel should be a struggle. I think no matter what your budget is, you can still make it to where it's enjoyable and it can be relaxed, and you can cut and move around some other things to where it's a wonderful experience. But that struggle business, that is not me. My mind doesn't work that way.
And I don't think it's fair to you as a person out there who's looking to travel. Let me say, I don't think that's fair to you, because if you're so worried about the expense, you won't enjoy the experience.
Absolutely.
So instead of, you know, going outside of your budget, really be honest with yourself about what your budget is. Right. And then, you know, share that budget and be like, hey, Jared, I have $100.
So I can get you a bus pass. You're not going far with that. We can do something.
Well, be honest, people. Be honest. Because, you don't want to come back from your trip and have a lot of debt. You don't want the joy of the experience to be overwhelmed by all of the other things.
Take this downtime to put away in that travel savings account, and then start looking, get some brochures, go online, get some ideas about destinations that you want to see in the future, and start, you can dream now and travel later. You can, save now, dream now, travel later. Take this opportunity to plan for the future. And that way, I think, you don't have, it's not quite as depressing.
I think so. I mean, I like to spend a lot of time alone. This is true.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that I find kind of overwhelming about this current time is that it does lock you into where I can't travel. But like you said, is that for me, this is an opportunity. We can research, we can save, we can plan, so don't, just say, well, if you have the money, you're like, oh, you know what, Jerry, I want to take a trip on, March 22nd, and you call her on March 21st, and you're like, get it, girl, just get me at the airport.
I have had people that have done that.
But it's like, but if you plan it, to me, it gives you more time to like, oh, yes, in 5 months, I'm going to be on the XYZ doing yada, yada, yada.
Oh, it's, when I used to when I was practicing law, and I was sitting in my little office looking out the window, and I knew I was going to Australia for 21 days in 8 months. That got me through some hard times. When I was frustrated, I wanted to throw my computer out the window. I thought about, I'm going to be in Sydney at the Opera House. That's what kept me going. And I think that's what it's going to be for a lot of people, because, unless you're retired or, something, you're not going to be able to just pick up and go whenever. So contact me, email me and say, okay, I'm looking at this time of year. Where would be a good place to go in April or May? Because there's some destinations that are, they have their lower seasons when things aren't expensive. Although, to be honest, in the next few months, once we see how airlift comes back on board and some other things, prices are going to be really questionable, because as the airlines are going through bankruptcy, they're cutting back on flights, they're cutting back on seats in particular. So it's going to be probably a situation where the airfare, I think we've probably seen a lot of the cheap airfares will disappear as travel starts to pick back up.
So. Yeah, I think unfortunately, because I mean, and the thing is like you always say, how much money have airlines made? But this COVID situation has just like squared up so many things, from, hotels to airlines. So what does that, what's that going to look like? As
a lot of smaller airlines don't exist anymore. I mean, there are some, that you would see in Europe, some of the smaller, they're gone. Yeah. They've already shut down. Yeah. So those connection flights, once you land in say Germany, and you would normally get in Hop or some other one of those other airlines, they're gone. So that means capacity has even cut back even further, and so it's going to be supply and demand. And there's certain destinations everybody wants to go, and I tell people, go somewhere you haven't been. If you travel a lot, have you ever been? I spent last summer in Scandinavia. In Copenhagen, multicultural city. I had no idea. And it was fantastic. I even went to Russia. It was fantastic.
And see, this is one of the questions that I wanted to talk about. The basics. Let's talk about some of those basics, right, Jerry? So when Angela, I call you, I've never traveled anywhere before. Mm-hmm. How do, not just the trip planning itself, but do you help people with the basics, like, passports, trying to figure out, and we talked a little bit about this, but let's talk a little bit more about it. But like you just said, instead of the Caribbean, like if I want to go take a trip in April, should I look at the Caribbean? Should I look at somewhere else? Do I need visas? You know, like, can you give us some of the basics for people who don't know, you know, because all they want to do really is, oh, my friend told me that they went to Italy and they had an awesome time. I want to go to the same place my friend went to. You know what I mean? So can you help us out a little bit? Tell us what we
Sure.
need to be thinking about.
Well, I mean, I think for many of us, I know for myself, my very first time out of the country, I was in elementary school, and my mother and my dad and my best friend's dad, they were, one was in the military and my dad worked every summer. So our mothers, they were school teachers, and they got us together and they would plan a summer trip. First place we went was to the Bahamas. We drove down to Miami, got on a plane, and we flew over to Bahamas. So I've been traveling outside the country for years. And I think if you're dependent on, once again, it comes down to what do you want to do? If you love the beach and you love beautiful water and you like to snorkel, well, you don't have to go overseas. I would recommend the Caribbean, but then you go, well, which island do you want to go to? Because it's very, Jamaica people and Virgin Island people are very different, because those two islands are very different. You're going to get a totally different vibe, a totally different experience going to Jamaica as opposed to, say, going to St. Thomas or going to Aruba, where, you know, somebody said, well, what's the safest Caribbean island you've ever been to? I said, Aruba. And they're like, really? I said, yes. It's small. I said, I rent a car. I'm still totally safe driving around. It's got beautiful beaches. It's got this little desert vibe. So I think the Caribbean, for somebody who's never been outside the United States, is a perfect first stop because it's close. The airfare will probably be very reasonable. And then it just comes down to, what do you want to do? If you want to shop and you want to eat, then of course there's some islands that would be better for you than that. And then for the more adventurous, like what I tend to get when it's older people, they've never been to Europe. I did go until I was, you know, at a milestone age. That was my first trip to Europe because I was happy with the Caribbean, and, you know, but then I said, let me kind of branch out, because it always sounded scary, but I said, you know what? I'm going to get out here and go somewhere I've never been. For a first timer, it depends on what their tolerance level is. Meaning, if you not used to flying, you don't like flying, are you going to want to spend 9 hours on a plane going over to, you know, Amsterdam or Charles de Gaulle and then going somewhere else? You don't want to spend that kind of time. If you don't, then let's look at, you know, what's close. And for people in the US, it's going to end up being the Caribbean. But I try and tell people there are so many beautiful destinations in this world. So what I try to get people to do is kind of broaden your horizons. You know, if money were not an object, where would you want to go and why? You know, what is it that attracts you there? I read a book by an IR author who I'm sure you know, Latrivia Welch. And she wrote a book called Dimitri's Closet, and part of it took place in Prague. And that stuck, that image, the way she described it. And, you know, she told me later, because I met her, she said, I've never been there. But the descriptions of it just, for 10 years, it stayed in the back of my head. And finally, when the opportunity came up to do a river cruise with 3 days in Prague before the cruise started, where we went through Central Europe, I was just amazed. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. So I try to encourage people to just think big, dream big. You know, the Caribbean, if that's your comfort zone, I do all-inclusive resorts. You just want to go there with your honey or go there with your friends to an all-inclusive resort, and you're happy sitting on the beach with a drink in your hand and all the food you can eat, not having to, you know, have a ticket. That's wonderful. And that's what you should do. But if you're a little more adventurous and you're getting to that point where I'm ready to explore and do some things I've never done, I think you will get so much out of it than just feeling, you know, I could only stay in this box.
Do you help people with the checklist or recommend that they visit? Because, you know, a lot of people out there who, if you guys haven't traveled outside of the country, one of the things that you may not be aware of is that you do like we're talking about COVID, that's nothing new. When you go to
No,
other countries, you have to meet their health requirements.
that's
So
right.
I don't understand why people are upset about COVID, because it's, you know, I've had to have typhoid shots. I've had to have
Yes,
Hep B.
yes.
You know, if you go to these other countries, they have requirements. So
Mhm.
whether it's COVID or something else, there's a requirement. So do you ever make recommendations for people, like to visit certain websites? Like, you know, what if somebody doesn't know where to start with their passport, or doesn't know that there are health requirements? Do you have like a checklist, or is there even some information on your website, or do you direct them somewhere so they can start with those kinds of basics?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things, depending on the destination, one of the things the next thing I'll say is you're going to need a passport. You're going to need a passport that does not expire within 6 months of your return from the trip. For this trip, you're going to need a visa, and this is how you apply. Because I had a lot of people going to Australia lately, and you need both. You need all of the requirements for the expiration date on passports have changed. A lot of people don't know that. They'll think, well, I still got a month left on my passport, so I'm going to go. And then, but I tell my people, I'm not going to get to that. Although some people you tell them and you have to follow up and follow up. But I have, depending on the destination, I have a checklist of all the pre-departure requirements that need to be completed before they leave. Just like with my Africa group, I had a group of 25 that traveled on that. And every week, as we get closer, when I do a group, all through probably the last 6 months, every week I am sending checklists. This is what you need to complete by now. And if you have not, this is what's going to happen. And get the visa done. You can do it electronically, or you have to fill out the paperwork. When I asked somebody that wanted to go to China at the last minute, I said, you need a visa. You're not going to be able to get it in 2 weeks. So you're not going to be able to go right now. So that is what I think is probably the most important function that I have when someone is traveling overseas, is to let them know. And now with our situation with the European Union, and they're talking about requiring Americans to have a visa to enter, all those things are in flux. So yes, I have checklists, I have destination information, kind of little e-zines, books that I send to my clients to tell them about the destination, whether it's Africa, Morocco, Europe. We talk about the hotel. I send them photographs. When we're picking hotels, I send photographs to let them know, this is what this superior room looks like. This is what this room looks like. So yeah, I guess, for being a lawyer, I'm very, very, very detail oriented, and you still end up getting surprised sometimes. But for me, one of my clients told me one time, she said, I like traveling with Jerry because she knows what to do when stuff goes wrong. So I guess that's a good compliment.
I'm gonna co-sign it, and I'm gonna say, to everybody out there listening to us, be flexible.
Be flexible. Yes.
Oh my God.
Go with
nothing.
flow.
Go with nothing takes the win, out of visiting someplace else for joy.
Yeah.
If you're traveling for joy, if you're traveling to explore and to have fun, be flexy, people.
Be flexible.
It's good. This is not your everyday life, right?
Right.
That's something that you're doing because you simply want to try something new. You want to see something you've never seen. You want to go somewhere you've never been, do something you've never done. So be flexy.
And you will be miserable if you're getting mad because the driver is 5 minutes late, or the tour starts a little late, or whatever. You'll go nuts. And so if you're going to be a traveler and not a tourist, then you need to know how to adjust your expectations, breathe, relax. You can't prepare for every outcome, every emergency, but part of the fun of it is also learning how to deal with things as they come up and not be uptight and too tense, which is why I don't like too strict and stringent itineraries. Like to have some time in there where, something can change and you can make adjustments if necessary. But absolutely, relax, go with the flow.
So before we close out, Jerry, this has been such a great conversation, but I want to make sure that people have your social media contact information.
Mhm.
So, for people who want to reach out to you to find out about how they can work with you to plan their next trip, how do they find you? Where do they go? Where do they look?
Well, Facebook is the easiest one. My business page on Facebook is M&E Unlimited Travel. And M&E stands for Memorable and Effortless Unlimited Travel. And you just put it in the search bar and it'll bring it right up. I'm on Instagram as Jerry V 2010, GERRIV 2010, and the same, my Twitter handle is the same as well. And I also have a YouTube channel, which I have videos from most of my trips around the world. I have probably 100 videos on my YouTube channel, which is under Geraldine Grant. My married name is Gibson, GIPSON. You just put that in the search bar at youtube.com and you'll pull up my travel video page. And if you want to email me, I'll give you my 800 number is 1-800-834-4357.
Yeah, and in the description for this episode, I'll make sure that I put these links so that people can easily find it, especially the YouTube channel, because I'm going to tell you guys, nothing inspires you to travel like seeing people travel. It's like when you see, every time you post something on IG or whatever, Jerry, and it's like a picture, with like some beautiful landscape, I'm like, yeah.
Anybody at any age can find a way to do it. So I say, don't wait. And if you're in that spot before, your knees get bad and your back gets bad, then, it's time to get out there.
Yeah, I completely co-sign that. It's like, you never know.
No, you don't.
You don't know what's coming next for you. So I personally am going to say that, to everybody out there listening to us, if you have a desire to explore, act on it. Do it. Do some research, call Jerry, figure out what you can do right now. It's like, this is a perfect time to plan.
It really,
like the world is going to right itself. It's going to open back up, and we're going to all be able to leave our homes safely.
And the demand for travel will be off the charts.
It's going to be ridiculous, right?
Ridiculous, which is why I tell people, if start planning to travel in spring, summer 2021, because right now the cancellation policies on all the airlines, hotels is very lenient. I mean, real lenient, because they want you to be booking things, for next year. Mm-hmm. And don't wait until the demand is high and so are the prices. So now is definitely, if you want to travel in 2021 for sure, you can easily do that. So I wouldn't wait.
Yeah, I would not wait. And I'm going to say, because we're going to have all of Jerry's information tagged in this episode, don't wait. Give her a call.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela.
Jerry, it's been a pleasure. You just make me get my travel mojo. Just talking to you, I'm like, let's do this.
I'm so ready. I'm so ready. I'm supposed to be in Rome right now, y'all.
I'm supposed to be in Greece right now.
Yeah, but you know what? I always think that things happen for a reason.
I do.
Maybe one we don't always understand. And like I said, I'm gonna have a big chunk of my bank account's gonna be looking real good. So I'm gonna be able to do a whole lot more traveling than I probably would have been able to do otherwise. So it's all good.
I think that we're all gonna be able to. I think this is a period of I don't know, hibernation for the world.
Yeah.
And on the other side of it, I think we're gonna all evaluate things. Like, what is it that we really want to do, and, what is it that we want to, see for ourselves, and I know for me personally, it's just made me even more, certain in some of the things and some of the changes that I have been planning over the past couple of years. And so I'm just excited about what tomorrow holds, and I'm looking to plan my next trip and to do my next thing. It's like the money that came back to me because I'm not in Portugal and not in Greece. I'm like,
no, exactly.
I just put it back where it came from.
Right. And I think, things will be, I think we need to keep in mind that our travel world probably will never go back to exactly what it was before. But I think travel will adjust. And as travelers, we will adjust. And so there's still things to be hopeful about. And there's still reason to plan and to dream and make that effort to get out there for sure.
I think so. And so to Jerry, I want to again say thank you for joining me, because it's been
my pleasure. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for asking me.
Oh yeah, I had to have this conversation with you, especially when I saw so many people, reaching out and telling me that the channel was making them want to travel. So I had to have the lady who helps me travel on this. So, I had to interview you. And for everybody out there in YouTube world, podcast land, I want to say thank you for joining me. This is Geraldine Grant. I was about to say Jerry Grant, but Geraldine Grant. And I am Angela K. Austin. I'm going to tag all of her contact information so you guys can find her on YouTube, Instagram. You guys can find her on Facebook. And if you have questions about travel and about how to travel safely, where you can go to be safe, when you should start planning, definitely reach out and ask Jerry how she can help you, take a little bit of that anxiety away, and then maybe I'll see you guys out there in 2021. Maybe we'll all be out there traveling. All right?
Yeah, let's just plan on it. Let's just do it.
Let's do it, people.
All right.
Thank you all for joining us. I will see you all again